Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. You guys all know that. And I am, as always, your very grateful host. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's another fantastic episode coming up with an incredible guy. I've known this guy for a long time and really, really excited to have him on today to tell his story and talk about some things that are near and dear to his heart and that he really believes in very strongly. And I think you guys are going to really resonate with a lot of his thoughts and words. So get ready because it's going to be a good one. I want to thank all you guys for all of your likes and subscribing and all your support. If you're not out there doing what you're doing, I can't sit back here in this seat and do what I'm doing. So I'm grateful. You guys all know what time it is, though. Got to pay some bills. So we have a new cup today. That's right. And this is only important because I got to give a shout out to Mrs. Power of Man. She's at a yoga retreat, and my dishes are all stacked up in the sink. I'm not even going to lie. So my normal coffee cup is 5 layers deep of dirty dishes. So, hey, we have a new one today. Here it is. All right. And you guys all know what we're drinking in that new coffee cup. It's Freedom Hill Coffee, right? At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Check them out. Let me get a quick sip of this preferred beverage, and we'll finish the read. Man, that's super hot. I just made a brand new cup of this, like a vat of it, actually. This cup's huge. Only way to drink that is with a double cup, guys. I'm telling you right now. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. They brew a mean bean. It's a fantastic cup of Joe. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which you guys all know is really important to us here at Power Man. And we have one on with us today, too. So I'm teasing it. I'm teasing it right now. You have no idea who's coming. That's right. Check these guys out at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram and tell them Power of Man sent you. All right. Now, let me get one more sip because I'm not sure if I can keep up with this youngster in front of me.
Ah,
All right, there we go. Gentlemen, please welcome to the program a dear friend of mine and someone that you're going to love hearing from. Um, he is the owner of Colors of Honor, which he's going to tell you about, and I'm excited to help him tell you guys about it. And Marine, father, husband, Jose Galvan. Jose, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right. So yourself?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Thanks for coming on, man. I know you were little withheld about coming on today, but thank you for braving it and coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you getting out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, good
You
deal.
know,
For those of you guys who are in the audio version only, he's got an awesome flag behind him, which I know he's going to want to tell you guys about. And he's wearing his Colors of Honor T-shirt, all right, which also looks smooth. And I know all this stuff is available. I'm going to let him tell you some more about that later. But Jose, before we get into who you are and where you come from and everything else, you're a Marine, brother, and I want people to know about Colors of Honor. I want them to know what it is and what it means to you.
yeah. So it started off with a little backstory of, I had all my stuff after I got out of the Marine Corps in my sea bag in the garage. And my wife said, "Hey, what are you going to do with all this stuff?" And I said, "I can't throw it away. Can't get rid of it. Can't throw it away." Uh, didn't want to donate it and have the wrong people wearing it. I had an American flag in my garage. So I said, "You know what? I'm going to make my uniforms into an American flag." And originally I did that, just for me to do something with my uniforms. Um, because like my grandfather, he was in the Army and the Navy in World War II in Korea. We have very little of his stuff. And I wanted to do something with my uniforms. So I made them into the flag. That way my kids, my wife, everybody can have them and pass them down and just know that I wore these in my time of service. I wore these in Japan. I wore these in Iraq, all that good stuff. There's a story behind the flag and the uniforms. And then from that point on, that's what I wanted to do for other veterans and other military service members was give them an option to be able to repurpose their uniforms, into a flag, and I think is one of the most honorable ways to display them. And then as I was thinking about things, you know, I started thinking about, well, what about our Gold Star families? In my unit, 1st Combat Engineer Battalion, 1st Marine Division, we lost 34 Marines. And I felt the need to give back to them. And so I said, well, what if I make these for the families? to show them that we remember, to honor them and respect, their loved one that was killed, and do that. And we can use the uniforms of that individual if the family still has them or wants to part with them. If not, I totally understand that as well. But as I started doing this and making these flags for our Gold Star families, I started seeing two things happen. One, the families are getting contacted again, and they're saying, like, hey, wow, somebody reached out. We haven't heard from somebody in a long time. And then I had Marines reach out to me from my unit saying, hey, man, can you make a flag for such and such family out of my uniforms that I wore to Iraq? So I think, in a sense, it was also a healing process in a way for those individuals to do something for somebody that they miss, one of their brothers that they lost and everything, and a way for them to be able to give back too. So by giving out or reaching out to the Gold Star families and hopefully helping them in their healing journey, I think I was also able to start reaching out to other veterans who are struggling with stuff like I struggle with, which they ended up calling survivor's guilt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And I just want to point out, you don't charge the Gold Star families for this.
No. Yeah. So the Gold Star families, these flags are 100% free
Wow.
for the families. I'll never charge a Gold Star family a penny for these.
Yeah.
The way we do it is anybody else who retires or wants a flag from the uniforms or from the uniforms we have, there's a charge to be able to help us to continue to do this free for the Gold Star families. But I won't ever charge a Gold Star family a penny.
No, I love that. I love what you're doing. I always have since the moment I first saw it. I thought this was a great thing to honor the memories. And I know that on your social media you do that too. You spend a lot of time honoring the fallen.
Yeah, I try to.
Wow, you do a
You
good
know.
job of it, man. Um, the now I know that you and I have talked before, but let everybody else know a little bit about what who is Jose? Why'd you end up joining the military in the first place, and what was that like? What led you to the military?
Yeah. I think a big inspiration came from my grandfather and my uncle. Like I said, my grandfather was in the Army and Navy, World War II in Korea. He ended up getting wounded in Korea. Um, just a man that, I looked up to a lot. My grandparents raised me. And then my uncle as well was like a dad to me. And he was in the Marine Corps. Um, I knew since a young age I wanted to be a Marine. So I think it was in sixth grade, I went down to the recruiter's office and they just kind of laughed and said, get out of here, kid. Like, come back when you're 18. Um, and that's what I wanted to do, from an early age. And so I went and did it, and uh, it was a good experience, good and bad, some of the best and worst times of my life. Um, it was awesome to be able to accomplish that and go through everything that we go through, to earn that title. Um, but yeah, my first went in and ended up going to Okinawa, Japan for my first year in the Marine Corps active duty. Um, and at that point, that's when they start playing with you. Like I knew because of 9/11 that we're in Iraq and Afghanistan and everything, and I was good with going. But in Japan, they come out and say, hey, we're going to be going. We're going overseas. We're going to deploy here, there. Have you do your will. That's the first time I ever done something like that. Do your will, do all of that good stuff, and then they say, oh, nope, you're not deploying. So I spent my year in Japan, and then I came back from Japan to the States and went to First Marine Division, First Combat Engineer Battalion. Um, and that's where I met a lot of good Marines that had a lot of experience already, so young. And my first deployment was 2005, 2006 to Al Qaim, Iraq. That was my first time, but I was very fortunate to be able to deploy with, fellows that had multiple deployments under their belt. So they took me under their wing. They showed me what I had to know and taught me what I had to do. Um, yeah, so we went there and like I said, 05, 06. Then I actually got out of the Marine Corps. I thought I was going to be what they call a lifer. I was going to stay in for forever till they kicked me out. But life had other plans for me, and I ended up getting out. Um, And after I was out for about 2.5 years, they recalled me. You're back as a civilian, but you're in the inactive regular reserves. And they said, nope, come on back. You got to deploy again. So went back in, went up to Camp Lejeune, and ended up deploying to Al Taqaddum, Iraq in 2008, 2009.
Wow.
And from that point on, I tried to reenlist, but they weren't taking reenlistments. So I got out again, and things happen for a reason.
Right. What was your reason that you got back out again? What do you think?
Well, the second time was they didn't let us stay in. They didn't let us reenlist.
Sure.
The first time I got out, um, there's some shenanigans going on in the unit, I guess. When we come back from deployment, stuff you don't want to deal with. Um, and then one of the biggest reasons was, like I said, my grandparents raised me, and my grandmother wasn't doing well, so
Huh.
They dedicated their life raising me, and I felt like I had to come back and help her out. You know,
Sure.
and yeah, sure enough, I didn't tell her when I got recalled because she would worry. So when I got recalled, I had to report in November 2008, and she passed away September, 2008. So I didn't have to break it to her like, sorry. I call her mom. Sorry, mom. I'm leaving
Yeah.
again. Um, so yeah,
Okay. So you went back in and then when they weren't taking reenlistments, then that's obviously God telling you you got to go do something else.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So where'd life take you from there? I'm curious.
I did a variety of jobs, different things, but I think the biggest thing was um, the family that I have. I think that's what the plan was meeting my wife, and the family that we have now. Uh, that definitely wouldn't have happened if I would have stayed in the Marines. Like, and it's hard. Like, I miss it. I do and I don't. Um, but I've missed it enough to where my wife has told me, "Hey, well, go back in." But I know I couldn't do that to them. So
Right. God had other plans for you. Exactly.
yeah, and sometimes I didn't know what those other plans were. Um, sometimes now I start seeing things, but when I first got out, I struggled quite a bit. You know, um, and one of the things I struggled with was the next deployment. When I got out, our unit deployed again, and a couple fellows that I knew were killed. And I sat there just thinking, like, man, I'm here at home while they're out there still doing that. And more fellows didn't come back. If I would have stayed in, I would have deployed with them. Maybe I could have done something. Um, so that stuff stuck with me for a while, and messed me up a little bit, second guessing myself and all that. And one of my Marine brothers put it to me this way, and he's like, "Hey, he's like, on the other deployment, he's like, were you able to stop everything and save everybody?" I was like, "No, that bothers me too, right?" And he's like, "So, what makes you think that you could have made a difference or done something different, save them if you would have been out there?" But that's still something hard pill to swallow because you don't know,
Right.
you know.
Right. The that was one of the things that was difficult about readjusting, right? Sort of adapting into being a civilian.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. What other kind of, obstacles did you have to face trying to be you know, well, you're always a Marine, but
yeah.
what other obstacles did you have to face in, becoming a civilian Marine?
Just that becoming a civilian. Um, you lose that brotherhood, and that's one of the biggest thing I think a lot of us struggle with is that closeness that bond you build with others. Excuse me. The experiences, like I said, it's some of the best and worst times of my life in the Marine Corps and deployment, but um, it's difficult too. Like I think they're doing better now, but some years ago, you just get out. you might come back from a deployment and dealing with all that stuff that was going on over there, and all of a sudden you're just out there as a civilian in the streets. You don't. There's no like. I don't know how you prepare for that, especially when it's right after a deployment, and then coming back to everybody's normal life that they have here compared to the life that you were living. So that was a struggle, like for me, for a bit. Um, uh, I got stuck because I felt like I never accomplished my mission out there, like I failed. Because guys got wounded, guys got killed. um, and for me, I always felt like I was supposed to be a protector since I was a kid, right? And that's one thing that I struggle with was as a kid, I failed to protect. But as a kid, you're a kid. You're not supposed to be protecting. But
Right.
there's some situations in my life that I felt like 3 years old, I'm trying to protect somebody. And then while you're out there as well, you're supposed to be out there watching each other six, protecting guys. And sometimes, you're not able to do what needs to be done. Um, so I struggle with that. Um, and then, yeah, like just dealing with normal life again. Um, I struggle with the purpose. What was my purpose in life? I struggle with why am I here and these other fellows are not? Why did I make it out of there, out of Iraq, and these other guys didn't? And uh, I struggled a lot with my own like love for myself and like being at peace. And as life goes on, then I get married and my family. I would think like, man, I know some of these fellows would have been a better dad than I am, would have been a better husband than I am, a better person. So why did they not make it? But I'm here, you know. I didn't feel that was right. I didn't feel like that was fair. Uh, but then as I started doing things like Colors of Honor, I had people tell me, well, you survived and you came back because this is your purpose, is to be able to do this, to have this mission, to honor them and stuff like that. And that's part of it too. Like, it's not just about giving the family flags, but telling their story, telling the stories of the families that they continue to live, with being a Gold Star family and telling the stories of their loved one. That way people know the names, they see the face, they know the person. Um, but yeah, so it's a big struggle. Not just myself, but I think a lot of individuals have, especially Marines, is you go and you become a Marine, you earn that title, and that becomes the pinnacle of your life. That's the peak. Now what? Now you allow that to become your only identity, is that you're a Marine. And so when you get out, you lose that sense of purpose. Now you're just like everybody else. You're just blending with the society, at the civilians, and that's hard for people to do because they don't care. In the Marines, you might be here or there, and you're somebody, you're something. Then you come back out and you try to live that way, and that's the only thing like that you identify yourself as a Marine. And I did that for a long time. That's the pinnacle. That's the proudest moment of my life, is being a Marine. No, I had that wrong for a lot of years. That's a chapter in my life. That's one of the proudest chapters of my life. But the proudest moment, the best part of my life right now, is my wife and kids, is my family. Like, we have to move that goalpost. We have to look at other things and not just, stick to, I'm a Marine and that's it. What else is there? There's a lot more to life than just being a Marine or being a veteran. Anything in life, being a pro ball player. I think so many of us get stuck with that. This is our only identity. And I struggle with opening up. We've worked together now for some time. When I first got out, I don't want to talk to anybody about anything.
Yeah.
I wasn't open-minded to anything. And that was another thing I struggled with was nobody understands. Nobody else understands. Only another veteran, only another combat veteran understands. I can't talk to anybody else about anything. And honestly, that's not true. There's certain things that other people are not going to understand, but so many people deal with different things in life that you don't know how that's going to help you or how you're going to be able to help them. It's I think being stuck with that was hindering myself as well for years. Um, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned, you and I have been talking for a long time, and I've been honored to be on the other end of that. But you have changed a ton, and you have done a lot of work. One of the things that I've heard you say since the very first day you and I ever spoke about anything was that you wished more guys would go out and try to find help for themselves in some fashion. And I know you talk about that a lot.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, it takes time. It takes time for you to get there. I wasn't ready years ago. Um, but if you don't start making movement to something, it's like I got tired of being tired. I was sick and tired of being tired of the life that I was living. And I just looked at my marriage and my kids, my family, and I was like, where I'm going right now, this is not going to last. Is this important to me or is it not important to me? Yeah, it's important to me. So what do I have to do? I have to do something different. And that's what I started doing things was doing different things. I just educating my own self, looking into stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I wish guys would do that, right? We sit there and we think again, nobody understands. We think, well, this is just life. This is the way it is. Oh, it's because I'm a veteran. Oh, it's because of the trauma that I experienced as a child, all this and that. Yeah, that's a part of your life, but you have to address it. You have to move past it. I talked to an old Vietnam veteran. He made a documentary called I Married the War. And this was a few years back, and I was struggling pretty bad. And he seemed to have all this stuff together. So I said, I'm going to ask him. And I was waiting for that golden answer. I said, hey, sir. I was like, how did you get better? When does it go? Like, when does it get better? He didn't give me the answer I wanted, but he gave me an answer. He said it never goes away, but it's on how you deal with it day to day. And this is something you talk about is winning the moments. We want to look so far down the road that everything's going to be good, everything's going to be perfect, but you got to do that work every day. And you have to, I was very negative, focused on the negative all the doggone time. That I stopped one day and I was like, when was the last time I gave thanks for the little good things that are happening in my life? I'm letting all the stuff that I feel is a negative in my life just overwhelm me. So I got to give thanks, even if it's one little thing, even if it's for 5 minutes. There's something good going in your life, right? And that's one thing I want to tell guys too is, yeah, look, do something that makes you uncomfortable. It was not comfortable for me to talk to you the first time. I felt like I was just completely jacked up,
Yeah.
and talk to you. And then we started working together and everything. And in the beginning, some of the stuff I was just like, oh, man, it's hard to face. It's hard to face reality. It's hard to face the things that you have to change. This change can be scary. But again, I was tired of it. I was like, I knew I was like, what I'm doing right now is not working. And this is not going to allow me to live the life that I was created to live if I don't do something different. And obviously, working with you and doing some work on myself, I'm like, why are other guys not doing this? I don't like to see people in the military that are also, like I'm a Marine, so I'm gonna refer to Marines.
Yeah.
You're an awesome freaking Marine while you're in the Marine Corps, but then you get out and you just kind of go to crap. Why? Why do we do that? In the Marine Corps, you learn to improvise, adapt, overcome. You know, they say Marines don't steal, we acquire. Why are we not acquiring different skill sets when we get out? We stay stuck in that mentality of, well, this is just the way I am. Nobody understands. But again, do something different. You find somebody like you. And actually, I would encourage anybody listen to the podcast, get a phone call with you. I'm going to
Thanks,
tell you
man.
right now, it's gonna change your life. It's changed my life. It's changed my relationship with my wife and kids. It's changed my relationship with myself. I've worked with different people, and it might take one or two, three different people that you kind of seek out or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's you have to be willing to make that change and make those sacrifices. We have had a buddy I was talking to a while ago, and a lot of us struggle, right? And I'm working with you, and it doesn't mean everything's perfect, but that's why we continue to work together.
Right.
So I was talking to one of my buddies a while ago, and he wasn't doing well, and he was talking about it in his life, like what good is he doing here, all of that stuff. And I said, man, I said, while we were out there on deployment, we were out there in Iraq. Every day, somebody was trying to take your life, and you were trying to defend yourself and possibly be willing to take their life. Every day you were out there. So that whole doggone deployment, somebody was trying to take your life. You survived. You made it back. Why in the hell would you want to finish the job for them here after you survived? And he was like, man, I never thought about it like that. And recently I heard something about, when somebody commits suicide, their pain's gone. The only one left with pain are the ones that they left behind here, having to struggle and deal with that. And this is something else that I think and I talk about is everything for the most part in your life is fixable. Everything. There's very few things that are not. But even then, the things that may not be, it depends on how you look at them and how you approach them, how you attack them. Certain medical issues or something like that, right? But everything else in your life is fixable. Your marriage, your finances, your traumas, all that stuff. Fix it. Make a move to fix it. Like it's so frustrating for me to hear another veteran commit suicide. And I found guilt with that too, because I had a couple of buddies from our unit, when they got out and committed suicide. And I was like, how come I didn't keep in better contact with them? How come I wasn't there? Again, pouring a lot of guilt on myself. Um, and I had a buddy say, hey man, I lived in the same town as our friend. I couldn't do anything. But that's the thing is I want to get to these guys before it gets to that point. And that's why I'm okay. There's that confidentiality, right?
Right.
Oh, we're not going to tell people. I'm an open book. You can share all day long that I'm one of your clients, that I work with you. And I tell people this is what I do. Because if I don't talk about it, other people aren't going to know about it. A lot of guys, they don't want to put their pride aside and say, you know what? I'm going to do this. But if they hear somebody else talk about it and they see what's been happening, like my relationship with my wife and kids right now is probably one of the best that it's ever been, you know, and I for sure thought, one of my kids, when they moved out, that was it. They were never going to want to come visit or anything. Our relationship right now is pretty freaking awesome. It's changed. I've changed, and I've had to do that work, and a lot of veterans get um, for service connected injuries and stuff like that, they get disability. Sometimes there's a monetary payment with that. And, you know, some guys are still able to work. So that's the way I look at it, is extra income. I would encourage you, if you're receiving like that monetary benefit, invest in yourself. Don't just use it as extra spending money or to do this or that. Invest in yourself, invest in coaching, invest in your health. You get that stuff because there's something that happened to you. So use that money to help get yourself better. And a lot of it is getting your mind right. But yeah,
What do you think is holding guys back from doing that?
I think there's a couple things. And I might piss some people off by saying this, but guess what? That was me too. A lot of people fall in that victim mentality. They want to use it as an excuse, and it's a reason for them to be pissed off, to be in a bad mood, and it's not a good life to live like that, you know. Um, and I think they're afraid, you know, they're afraid of that. Like me, I was always a serious fellow. I'm serious. Um, Unfortunately, for a while, people said the only emotion that they knew me as was angry. Now I'm not as angry, and I've allowed myself to be goofy. I do silly little things. I do little dances with my daughter. That it's just like it's goofy. People laugh, and it's like, what the heck? But that makes me feel human. That's a part that I think is also an issue too. Is not just that victim mentality, but when I deployed and I got back from that deployment in 2005, 2006, I became desensitized out there. Um, and that's the way I lived for a while. Uh, and so to be silly, to be goofy, to laugh, to let my guard down allows me to feel more human, more connected with people. Um, and then I think too is just they hold themselves back because you're a man. You don't seek help. You don't go look for somebody to talk to about stuff, and you're a Marine. You're in the military. You're weak. You're weak if you go to sick call. You're weak if you say you need help or something's going on with you, and that's the way I was too for the longest time. I don't need freaking help from anybody. I got this. I'll figure this out, but it's crazy. It's crazy to see that the people you love the most were the ones that you were hurting because of what you were carrying and that you refuse to do anything different. I don't want to see guys ruining their relationship with their kids, ruining their relationship with their spouse, getting divorced. I don't want to see guys unemployed because they can't, maintain their composure, um, ending up homeless because now they have to use a substance to make themselves feel good. That's another thing too, I think, is the substance abuse stuff. It's hard enough as it is for us to actually seek out help and do things and talk about it and be open. But when you're abusing the substance, I'm going to tell you right now, that's the first thing that we got to fix. We got to get that under control first before you try to look and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. That has to go. That's the first thing that has to be fixed before you think that you're going to be able to fix your mind and fix your relationships. And it's, I was going somewhere with that. I lost my train of thought now, but
Well, I've known you for a while, and I know that the when it comes to that, the substance abuse part of it, we've talked about how it's so ingrained in the culture, of everything in terms of whenever guys get together, it's almost expected. And I know that you hold a pretty hard line on that. So, yeah, I guess in your opinion, with what you've been through, um, what is it that does need to change? Is it the culture? Is it the individual behavior? Is it just willpower? What do you think?
I think it's a combination of all of it, but I think a lot of it starts with the leadership too.
Hmm.
It starts with leadership. Um, they got to have their crap together, and they got to teach others to have their crap together. Uh, like, and it's on the individual. It's on the individual to hold themselves accountable. Um, but that culture, yeah, especially in the military of drinking, some guys can do it and can drink, casually and all that stuff. Then other guys end up developing a problem with it, and then that's how you end up coping with things. What do you do? Like for the Marine Corps birthday, we drink. What do you do when you get promoted? You drink. What do you do when you get an NJP? You get in trouble and you get demoted. You drink, or maybe that's why you got in trouble. Um, what do we do on certain anniversary dates? Good and bad. You drink. What do we do on dates where somebody lost their lives? One of our brothers was killed. To honor them, you drink, and it's suppressing all those emotions. Like that's the thing I started looking at differently with myself was so for the fellas that can do it, hey, great. If that's how you're going to do it, do it. But if you have a problem, if you're drinking, if your substance, whatever, is affecting your personal life and your family, that's not honoring your brothers that passed. You're not living the kind of life that they would be proud of. I think they would rather be proud to see you being successful and having a good family life versus drinking your sorrows away. And it's hard. It's something. It's a struggle, and sometimes you want to go numb, but I found doing other things. I for health reasons, right? I never really had a huge drinking issue, but for health reasons and a lot of stuff that I have going on, I haven't drank in a long time, probably 9 years, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, because I would do that on certain dates, certain events. I get quiet and I come and just have a little bit of something to drink, you know. But I knew, even though I wasn't acting out or doing anything crazy, I knew what the environment it caused in my home when I just came home, got quiet, sat there and drank, and my way of doing stuff differently now is doing what Colors of Honor does. If I sat here and I just drank and I just drank all my sorrows away, um, didn't try to get my crap together, how am I supposed to honor these families? How am I supposed to honor our fallen? How am I supposed to be an example for others and say it is possible? Look, man, I've been there. I've been there when it's been really, really freaking crappy. I didn't think it was going to be possible, but it was because I doubted myself a lot. And there was a lot of negative self talk on the daily for me. A lot of regret, negative talk. Um, like we had talked before, and So going back to the veteran stuff and like suicide, there's a whole 22 a day, and I can't stand that daggone phrase because to me it's almost like I've seen people post on social media about how they're thinking of becoming one of the 22, like that's something to freaking live up to, like it's an honor. No, and then doing 22 push-ups, that doesn't help anybody. I think call 22 fellows that you served with. Call somebody, do something that's actually going to make a difference. And that's contact with each other. That's talking to each other, checking up on each other. And it's not just, hey, let's call each other when crap is when it's crappy. But let's build each other up. Let's talk about our wins. You know, we'll sit there and say, oh, yeah, man, life sucks. Yeah, she doesn't understand all this and this, whatever. But what's good in your life? Let's talk about that too. But that, like, it's a statistic. And we've talked about this. I say you can either be another statistic or you can become a success story. What do you want? I chose to become a success story. I wanted to be different. I wanted to do something different. And again, I want to be able to be somebody that people see and say, it's possible. People that know me, they know where I've been and where I'm at, you know. And I think they know there's a pretty big change, you know. And there's more to change. And that's part of what, you know, with Colors of Honor, it is about the Gold Star families and the flags and stuff. But I'm also pivoting toward how can I help other individuals? How can I help them in their lives and their relationships so we don't have another suicide? You know, how can I help them live a life of honor for the ones that we did lose? You know, and that's like I have a lot of things run through my mind of what I want to do with Colors of Honor. But yeah, it's biggest thing I'll say is do something different. Talk. You know, like I said, I'm an open book. You know, and there's some guys that are doing a lot better than I am in life. And that's freaking awesome. I love to see that. I love to see some of these Marine brothers that I served with doing so well in life, being successful in, you know, career, in their relationships. Like, I love it. You know, like I want more of that. You know, I feel like I'm in the middle and I'm going toward there. I hate to see the guys go backwards and their life is in shambles, you know. And that's why I put myself out there. You know, places I go, I'll talk to people and I'll tell them stuff. And, you know, I get it because with deployments being in Iraq, Afghanistan, and different places like that, everybody's experience is different. Some experience a lot worse than others do. Some don't ever experience combat. And the way I put it, like, is for me, there's a lot of fellas that have been through, seen and done a lot worse than I have. But there's a lot of folks that have not been through or seen and done what I have either. But that doesn't mean that we have to have had the exact same experience to that level in order to be able to help each other. You know, and I look at things too, where it's like, okay, on one of the social media pages I'm on, there's another suicide, a Marine. And I asked the question, why? Why? Like, what happened? And when there's guys on there that threaten that, nobody asks us questions. Nobody gets into the deep end of it. And I do. I'll go and ask questions. I'll look stuff up. And it's like, okay, we can't, if it is PTSD, let's address that. If it is from your combat experience, let's address that. But let's also be true. Let's be real. Let's be honest. Maybe it's a contributing factor, but is it you? Is that a different element in your life that's going on? Let's stop just saying, "Oh, it's because I'm a veteran that this is happening." Is it, childhood trauma that you've never dealt with? Let's look into that. Let's start going from one thing to another to another. We can address PTSD, but if you haven't addressed childhood trauma, you're still going to have some of the same issues. If it's a financial issue and you haven't addressed your finances and how to manage them, if it's a marriage issue, if it's an emotional issue, you can't control your emotions. If it's a substance abuse issue, I've had fellas tell me that too. Oh yeah, it's because, bro, I'm a veteran. I'm a combat veteran. No, maybe it's because your wife's upset because you're choosing to go out to the bar and drink and come home late instead of spending the time with your family. Like, let's be honest and let's address and attack those issues. I think a lot of us have multiple issues that we have to address. And we got to stop just putting the blame on one thing. Like I said, I want not just myself, I want everybody else to be a success story. Be the example for your kids to be able to see that too. It's never too late. I thought it was too late. I've talked to you about it.
Yeah.
I thought it was too late with me and my family and my kids because they're getting older. And I was like, I screwed up. Many years I screwed up. It's too late. There's no fixing this. That people can see now. Like, I did not see relationships with my kids the way they are right now happening. And they're happening, and so it's possible. You got to put that work in there. You got to put the effort.
One of the things that I know guys talk about when they want to respond to some of the things that you've just said, for instance, is they want to say, I don't know where to start. I'm not sure how to even start going down that path. You know what I mean? And it doesn't really matter what the issue is. They really just don't know what to do to get moving. Thinking back, what was it that got you to start?
It's a few different things. Like I said, going back, I got tired of it.
Yeah.
But just looking to people who are doing better than I am in those areas of life. So what are they doing that I'm not doing? How do I improve there? And then start moving toward that direction, and then putting yourself into that group of individuals. Again, not too specific, not only a combat veteran group, but a group of individuals that you can bounce ideas off of and talk to about stuff. Because this person might be screwed up in this area, but they got this together. And you might be the opposite. So you could help each other out. But yeah, it's different things I've read. I started reading books on different topics in life that I was struggling with. Talking to individuals, podcast, different groups. Now you got to look like I was a part of a group years ago that I thought was good, but there was nothing positive coming out of that group. It was all very negative. So I removed myself from there. So start removing yourself from the negativity. If this environment is a negative environment for you, move away from there. It might be lonely for a little bit, but you're already lonely. That's why you're in that negative environment. And reach out to people. Start opening up to people too. Like, you'll be amazed at how many people actually listen or might be able to relate versus judging you. A lot of us are afraid to be judged. But when you start talking to people and you start realizing like they can relate or they know somebody else that's kind of been in that same spot or whatever, But again, surrounding yourself with a different environment and different people. Being in your group, there's a lot more positivity versus that other group I was in years ago. Like there was nowhere positive to go in that other group.
Yeah.
Here it's different. It's a support system. And I think that's a part of it too, is not just on the individual and the veteran, especially if you're married and have a family, but they have to, like my wife, she's very supportive. It's not always easy for her. I was a very difficult person to live with for a long time. But she started seeing what I was doing. And even though I would make progress and slip back, I would continue to kind of move forward and keep trying to push. And she would see that I never gave up. I would get frustrated, but I never gave up. So now she would do what she could to support me, like when we have our calls. There's times things come up, or sometimes I don't want to do the call, but she doesn't allow me to have that excuse. She makes sure that that time is dedicated and set for me to be able to have the calls with you. And then there's a big thing that I think I might be going off topic here, but
You're fine.
you talk about leading a lot, right?
Constantly. Yeah.
Um, in the beginning, I'm just like, there it is again. Lead, 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 right? And as a Marine, you think you know how to lead, but you can't lead your family the same way as you do in the Marine Corps. And that was one of the issues that I was having. That's the way I was doing it. Um, and eventually they'll see. The more you're consistent, the more you're holding yourself accountable or being held accountable, the more progress you make. Right. And just because you're making a change and you're trying to improve yourself doesn't mean for you to have the same expectations of your spouse or other individuals in your life. Eventually they'll get there. But if you're like, I'm changing, why are you not changing? I've done this. How come you're not doing this? It's that game that just goes back and forth. And I did that for a long time. I've done this. I did this. I did that. What about them? Once I stopped focusing on them because I just wanted to work on me, things started changing. You know, but yeah, I think it's the support system too. So any of the family or spouses or friends out there, to support them. And if we see them trying to make a change, help them, acknowledge that. Because a lot of the times too, especially with guys, we'll talk crap instead of being supportive. You'll mock somebody, you'll talk crap about what they're trying to do and everything, right? Um, and I was afraid of that for a long time too. That, oh man, people are going to say something. Now I don't care. I don't care if they see me reading what book or talking about what I'm talking about, because that's one of the things that, like I said, I used to be very quiet. And one day I was talking to an individual, another veteran. The next day, a different person I didn't know was paying attention came and approached me and said, "Hey, man, can we walk and talk? I heard you talking to so and so about this and this." Because I opened up myself up, somebody else heard. And so I was able to start moving there. And at that time, I didn't have my stuff together as close to what I have it right now, but I knew it was important to me to share my story and to help others try to figure out theirs as well. Um, but yeah, again, and just invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. Be willing to break out of your shell. Um, I know this isn't a commercial or promotion for you, but for reals, any of my brothers that I served with, anybody else that hears it, like, give it a chance. Give it a chance, because if you don't do anything, your life's going to stay the same. So you got to do something different. And the reason why I talk about you so much, not just because I'm on your podcast, is because I know what has happened in my life, what has changed, what continues to change, and the different perspective I'm able to take on things. Um, we've talked about this. I've had this reoccurring dream where I feel stuck because I'm going up a hill or an incline and I can't make it. I start slipping and keep going backwards. I can't make it up there. It's too steep. Or there's like a boulder, right? And I can't keep moving. And not too long ago, I had a little bit of a setback. And I thought I lost all progress. And you're like, no, you just became stagnant. You have an obstacle in your way. You didn't go back down the hill. The progress you made is still there. But now you got to, push a little bit more to make it a little bit further up. And that brings me back to what we had talked about before is perfection. I kept looking for perfection. And I tell myself, no. Because if you look for perfection and you fail, then you consider yourself a failure. That's what I was doing. I failed at it again. So I just tell myself now, progress over perfection. Am I making progress in my life? Yeah, I'm making progress in my life. Things are different. Things are changing. Things are going on for the better. Don't beat yourself up because you didn't get it perfect. You didn't have a good day today. That's today. Tomorrow's a different day. You got to rewrite that story every single day too. I used to get in very bad slumps. I'd be in a negative spot for a long time. Now those happen and I'm able to recover within a matter of sometimes minutes to hours. Very rarely do I get in a slump for multiple days anymore when it used to be like that on the regular. Um, and again, it's that progress, making progress, and then not giving up. Just because you hit that roadblock doesn't mean to give up and throw your hands up and say the heck with it. You know, it's yeah,
It's hard for a lot of guys, and I know you kind of fell into that too, to look at yourself like you're worth fighting for,
yeah,
you know? I know that you kind of felt some of that, at the beginning, like, hey, this is going to take a lot of work, but I'm not worth fighting for, you know? Even if you didn't say that, I know you felt that a lot. I know a lot of other guys feel that way too. The survivor guilt and everything else that you carry around, you don't feel like you have that value, and you don't feel like it's no matter how hard I fight, I'm not worth it. Um, One thing I've watched you do that I hope other guys can learn from is that while you were dealing with how you felt about your own value, you made a decision that even if you didn't think you were worth it, you knew damn well that your wife and your kids were worth it. That seemed to really move that boulder for you.
yeah.
How do guys get to that point? How do guys start to understand that, the people who depend on you have to be more important to you than you are to you. How do guys start understanding that, man?
One is you just self acceptance and love. Like for the like, I loved so many people in my life. I love so many people in my life. I love my wife. I love my kids. But I didn't love myself for the longest time. So how can you truly love somebody else and care for them if you don't love yourself or care for yourself? Right. And just by you looking at somebody like me, my wife and my kids, right? I have to provide for them. I have to protect them. So even if I didn't care for myself at the time and I had all these struggles and issues, I got to sacrifice and I got to make sure that they are loved, that they are taken care of. You got to make those sacrifices. You have to like I don't know if you can figure it out on your own. That's why I started working with you. you know, because I was trying to figure out a lot of stuff on my own. Um, so to get to that point, you got to find what works for you. Um, and because of my issues that I've had, one of the things is the conditional love that you talk about. Because I would be not happy with myself or I would be angry about something. And I didn't think it was conditional love with family and friends. But if you treat somebody a certain way because you're not happy with them, that's conditional, you know? So you have to every day show that unconditional love. And it's hard, you know, it's hard and you're upset and you're in a bad mood. Um, but when you start living for other people too, when you start living your life for your wife and for your kids, that's going to help you change in here. I had a very dark heart for a long time. Um, and my wife and my kids lined it up, but I was still holding on to that darkness. Um, so I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, you have to go for it. You have to go for it. Like they have to be important to you enough for you to feel the pain and for you to sacrifice. What is this? Like they say, you can live a pain of guilt or a pain of regret, or what? How does it go? Um,
I'm not sure, but it's
no, so it's like I think okay, something like you can suffer the pain of sacrifice or suffer the pain of regret,
okay.
right? And it's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take you getting uncomfortable um, and facing stuff you never wanted to face because you suppressed everything. And for me, like to be able to see that relationship change with my wife and my kids, even for just a moment, gave me that hope that it is possible. And then I started allowing myself to love myself too, you know, and that's when it took a big change. Yeah,
There's not enough groups out there, you know what I mean, that are devoting themselves to giving that kind of help to veterans, to Marines, to guys who have fought those battles and are still fighting them. But they are out there, and even though there's not enough of them, they are out there. The Trying to find a brotherhood like that is a great first step. You know, if somebody's out there and they're trying to figure out what do I do, how do I get started? Finding a brotherhood, just finding somebody that you can actually speak to, about anything, just to sort of de-escalate, is a good start. But uh,
yeah,
but you got to decide that you want to change. You got to decide that you want to. And one thing about guys that take their own life, man, that you have to be feeling like you have absolutely no value at all
yeah,
to do that. And I don't think you're that far away from digging yourself out of that if you can just talk to somebody somewhere,
yeah,
you know. So
yep. And
that's
that's a huge part of it, like we said with the support group, right? And having that group, having those individuals to be able to talk to, and don't limit yourself again to who is it, but just jump in there, get in the group, sit back for a little bit and check it out, see what's going on, and then start to get involved.
yeah. Yeah. I'm incredibly proud that you are moving into that, in a lot of ways and wanting to, have that influence. You're commenting in groups and, you're active on social media and you're talking to guys. I think it helps to hear from somebody like you, who's been in it, who understands it. So I hope that when people hear everything you have to say, that that's going to resonate for them. Coming from somebody like you who's got the credibility to speak the words.
Yeah, and that's something I think is a big part of it too. Is on my private social media, I'd done a while ago a little talk, and I mentioned that, you know, getting a group together with these fellas so we can socialize and talk to each other. Again, the good, bad, and the ugly. The conversations could be deep, the conversations could be lighthearted, but that community needs to get built again because you can't do it by yourself. And that's one of the things like this. Everything that I've done so far, I can't do by myself, and I thought I could, but it wasn't working.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, man, there's definitely an opening out there if somebody like you decided they wanted to have a group to talk to guys. I'm just
Yeah, it's been on
saying.
my mind.
I'm
It's been
just
on my
saying.
mind. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Brother, I love everything you had to say today. I really do. As far as let me circle this back real quick, just for the sake of time and whatnot. I want to make sure we cover colors of honor. Um, the how can people, if they want to reach out and help with colors of honor, if they want to, to buy a flag for themselves or just help you supply Gold Star families with these memories, how can they do that?
One, just spread the word. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I had a website, but that's down right now. That'll get back up at some point in time. Um, so contact me either through email, through Messenger, how you think you could help. We do have um, I forget what it's called now. Venmo, a Venmo.
Oh, okay.
If anybody wants to throw a few bucks that way, just to help to, keep everything rolling.
Sure.
And 100% of that goes toward the flags,
Right.
right? But yeah, just I have a little bit of merchandise. I got a couple shirts, a couple hats, some stickers and stuff. Um, and the flags, like I can make a flag for you out of your uniforms that you served with. So you have the same ability to do the same thing, right? You can display that flag and there's that story behind it for your family to carry on for generations. They know that you physically wore those uniforms in your time of service and they know the story behind it and who. Um, and if you don't have your uniforms, because I know some fellows don't have the uniforms anymore, we have uniforms that we can make the flags for or for you with. Um, and also, if there's a Gold Star family that you know specifically and you have contact with, and you want us to use their uniforms for that family, contact us that way too. Let us know who they are. That's one of the biggest things is um, the contact with the Gold Star families. It makes it easier for us if you do have a point of contact. If not, we'll do what we can do to try to track down the families. Uh, but if you have that point of contact, that's going to help us out, big time. If you are a Gold Star family and you're hearing this, reach out to us. Reach out to us and
Awesome.
talk to us, and we'll do what we can do for you. But
Yep. So they can find you at Colors of Honor on Facebook and on Instagram.
yeah, Colors of Honor on
Right on.
Instagram and Facebook. And then my email is just jose@colorsofhonor.com.
Right on. Beautiful. The As we wrap up, you've unpacked a lot, brother, and I mean you've shared a ton, and I am very appreciative of it, and I know a lot of other people are as well as they sit here and listen to this. I know a lot of heads are shaking, going, damn man, yeah, and I think they're probably agreeing with just about everything you're saying. Um, I want to give you, it's kind of like one shot though. Is there something that I didn't ask you about that you want to make sure you make a point on, or maybe you made a point and you want to just drive that point home a little bit? Or hey, maybe you just want to leave one more piece of advice for anybody listening. Maybe someone who's having a hard time. Um, any of those things. I just want to give you the floor for a minute, and let you just kind of finish up, cover whatever you think needs to be covered.
Yeah. Make that change. And again, you can't do it alone, especially if you've been trying to and it hasn't worked. Uh, Reach out, um, and become a success story. Like it's like I said, everything in your life is fixable. I deal with some things that a lot of people have no idea that I deal with, and I'm pushing through to be able to provide for my family and to be able to do colors of honor, to be able to change. And I know there's a lot of people that are struggling with things, but if you knew some of the stuff that I deal with, if I can do it, you can do it. You got to push. Like there's no freaking excuse for you not to be able to live the life that you're created to live. But
Yes.
just got to do it.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Brother, it's an honor to call you a friend of mine and to have you on here tonight. I can't tell you how grateful I am that you came on and shared the way you did and had everything you had to say. And I know people are listening to it. Thank you for being here today, man.
I appreciate you, Rory.
Thank you. Folks, that's been another episode of Power Man Podcast. I could have kept on talking to Jose forever about this topic. And I'm sure that there's a lot of guys out there who wish that we could keep talking about it too. Listen, if you're out there and you're hurting, if you know somebody who's out there and hurting, if you're watching people post on Facebook about how bad they're hurting, don't just sit there and assume it's nothing. Reach out. Have them reach out. I'm here. Jose's here. There's all kinds of groups. There's people. Don't just do nothing. And like Jose has so very eloquently said today, do something. Do something. Because at the end of the day, you have value and you matter. And the only thing that has to change is that at some point you have to believe it. Until next time.